Hey guys, Chris here. In this video, I'm going to give you guys my opinion, my review on the BYD Tang Electric after a whole week in this car. But I do apologize guys, this won't be my typical, more produced style of review because the past week has been total chaos. It started off while after I picked up this car, my daughter was sick. I had to keep her home from daycare for a few days. And then when she was finally well enough to go to daycare, I had to go to the launch of the Hongqi EHS9. Link to that video in the description box down below. And then the weekend, well, I'm off on the weekend. I want to spend time with my daughter. And then Monday, which is yesterday, I was going to film the 10 to 80% charging time and charging speed test, but I had issues with the charger halfway through the test. I had to abort, so yeah, a few hours just thrown away. And then I was supposed to film that video. Well, I'm still supposed to film that video after this video. I was supposed to wake up early this morning to film this review, the proper review. But I woke up to snow here in Oslo in the middle of October. So I had to wait till the snow had melted, which has now, to go out and film. So here we are guys, 2 videos have to be produced today. And then I have to get this car back to BYD and then get back home. So yeah, a pretty chaos week. So guys, I still hope you like this video, can drop a like, a thumbs up on the video down below. And also if you aren't subscribed to the channel, I'm Chris. I have this channel dedicated to EV. So if you like EV content, please go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. Sound that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the cool upcoming videos I have on this car. Before we take this car out on the road and I tell you what it is like to drive, I'm going to hit you with some numbers, some specs, things that people find important to know in the beginning of a video. So this is a large electric SUV, 4.87 meters long, 1.95 meters wide, 1.73 meters tall, and has a ground clearance of 19 centimeters. And to put that into perspective, that's just a smudge smaller than a Volvo XC90 or an Audi Q7. So this thing is huge. It's a proper SUV. The trunk is also quite big, 530 liters. But maybe more importantly, this is actually a 7-seater. You can actually fit people into the third row here, small adults or big children. The battery pack, 86.4 kilowatt hours net, and has a WLTP range of around 400 kilometers, though my motorway range test has shown that this has a little bit less than 300 kilometers of real-world range at, well, motorway speeds. Not too bad in actual cold conditions, so link to that video in the description box down below. Dual electric motors, 507 horsepower, does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.6 seconds. And this comes fully equipped out of the box with all the luxuries and amenities and comes in at 600,000 kroners here in Norway before winter wheels and delivery. That's about 60,000 euros. That is an amazing price. That is a lot of car for not a lot of money. Okay, let's take this car out on the road, and this will be, well, kind of a one take. I'm probably going to edit this just to, well, leave out the things that are boring, but hopefully I'm going to be able to speak as on point as possible. We're going to take a left here. So we sit very high in this car. As I said, this is a proper SUV. And is it a luxury SUV? Well, from the interior, it feels quite premium. Is it there at the level of the best Germans and, the best Scandinavians and the best British cars? Well, not quite. Some of the switchgear feels a little bit cheap, but mostly overall, this is a very high quality interior. Yes, you do have, some hard touch plastics down low in the cabin, but the dashboard, materials with its, faux leather, with aluminum trim, microfiber on the dashboard and also on the doors, it does feel and look pretty high quality in here. No rattles, no creaks, and over a speed bump like this thing feels very, very solid. We're gonna take a right here. This road here, close to where I live, I'm driving in my neighborhood now, guys, so you'll get to see more of where I actually live. This is a very bad road that I usually do test with a lot of cars. I've driven on this road a lot of times. Right in front of us, we actually have a Volvo XC90. I've had 2 of them for reference, so when talking about a big car like this, I have a lot of experience. And this is a road that would unsettle my XC90. My XC90, nice air suspension, nice tuning, but this road would upset that. I would like, the suspension isn't as good as I would like it to be. In this car though, I actually think it is better than my Volvo XC90. I don't know, that's going out on a limb, and especially this car being on 22-inch wheels. Yeah, it feels really, really nice because like my XC90, I'm going to use that as a reference because that is a car that's similar sized. That would have some shudder in the chassis over some of these bumps. This is something I do feel in cars that are not at the top tier level, like the Hongqi EHS9. I didn't talk about that on camera, but that car would have some shuddering, some flex over speed bumps. This doesn't have that. This feels very, very solid over this really bad pavement. So ride is very impressive, and from what I could find out, this is on conventional springs and dampers, so no adaptive damping and no air suspension. I may be wrong. Please correct me in the comment section down below if you have other information, but I tried to find, I could not find anything, and also there isn't anywhere to do any adjustments here in the infotainment system or via hard buttons. So ride comfort, super impressive. The thing feels very solid. What's not as impressive is road noise. So again, this is on 22-inch wheels. These tires are wide. I think they're like 265/40 22s, Continental Conti Sport 5s. So pretty decent tires. There is a bit of road noise, tire roar. Though air noise or wind noise is quite good suppressed. This has double glazed windows. But road noise can be an issue at higher speeds. It's not as quiet as something like a Mustang Mach-E or a Skoda Enyaq, Volkswagen ID4, you know, the best in this class. So not the best when it comes to sound insulation. These seats, pretty comfortable. This car comes fully equipped, so these are heated and ventilated. Steering wheel is heated. I mean, this is an impressive interior at this price point. Remember, this car spec this way is about 30,000 euros or 300,000 kroners cheaper than my Audi e-tron 55 with a similar sized battery, similar range, and much more space. Is the Audi worth more? I mean, probably nicer interior. That suspension is just magical and it's super, super quiet. But if you're looking for a family car with a lot of room and a lot of space, 7 seats, well, you don't have too many choices. Tesla Model X, yeah, that's about 300,000 kroners, 30,000 euros more expensive. So yes, there are other options. Also, you have the Hongqi EHS9, which is coming to market later this year. But again, that is very, very large, and you don't sit as high in that as you do in this. I really do like the high-end commanding position. Now we have some roadworks up here. So we'll use this opportunity stopping here to talk about the exterior design. So my least favorite thing about this car, I think, is the front end. It's not offensive, it's just a bit boring and a bit bland, and that grille looks a little bit too much like a Toyota. So it's not the most attractive thing. In profile though, I think this thing looks quite imposing. It is large. As I said, when you step up to it, it feels like a large car. My favorite angle must be the rear end. I like the rear styling of this car, you know, the wraparound light bar. It just looks much more attractive from the rear than from the front, in my opinion. But this has, you know, it has that ground clearance on the 22-inch wheels. It really has this presence when you come up to the car and look at it. It's quite imposing in person. And also, for being this tall and large of a vehicle, it's actually impressively dynamic. I mean, it isn't sporty at all. Steering though has this old school hydraulic feel to it, but not like BMW hydraulic feel, more like, I don't know, Toyota hydraulic feel, where it's still quite lifeless, but it moves around in your hands over pavement and roads, suggesting, I don't know, maybe it's just poorly set up, but it feels very analog in that sense, and I do like that. Is it to everybody's taste? I don't know, probably not, but on a twisty road, this thing is actually impressive, though it is not sporty at all, but it's not trying to be sporty. As for the rest of, you know, the cabin, I've talked about the switchgear. Most of the switchgear is pretty nice actually, but some of the switchgear does feel cheap. That's why it is not up there with the best. But I don't know, we have this large, expansive panoramic sunroof that you can actually open up. That is very, very impressive. We talked about the trunk, we talked about the rear seats. Hopefully I'm going to overlay, you know, proper B-roll of all of the things I'm actually talking about. So then we have charging. I haven't done my 10 to 80% charging time and charging speed test, but I have done extensive testing with this car. So I've been getting about 116 kilowatts peak speed from around, well, down low like 1 or 2% up till around 64%. So I'm guessing 10 to 80%. That video probably is out already, guys, so go and watch that. I'm going to overlay the information here, so I'm not actually going to give a number. I'm just going to overlay that. But that may be a weakness of this car, that it has more to, well, to improve on when it comes to charging. It could charge faster. This, having this large of a battery, wouldn't have any problem, you know, for battery health, to charge at 150 kilowatts, at least to like 50 or 60%, which would dramatically improve the charging of this car. But it does something very strange when charging that no other EV I have experience with has done. So you plug it, and it takes like 4 or 5 minutes, where it just sits at like 7 to 10 kilowatts before it then shoots up to like 100 kilowatts, and then, you know, shoots up to 116. That is very weird. I don't know why it's doing that. Is it maybe preconditioning the battery before it can pump in the juice, before it can, you know, bring the pack voltage up to speed? I don't know what that is, but it is a bit strange. So the weakness of this car now seems to be its charging. Let's talk a little bit about the infotainment system and the tech in here. So first off, you have a digital driver's display, which is 12.3 inches. That you can see, the huge problem with this is glare. There's so much glare. You see that up there in the left corner? That's exactly what I am seeing. And also, it doesn't get bright enough. I have been told, though, that the final software, the final iteration of this, isn't as presented here in the car. There are issues here that will be fixed and sorted out before customers are delivered cars within a few weeks. So this is a pre-production. Just bear that in mind, guys. But I don't know if are they able to, you know, give it more screen brightness in software? Maybe, I have no idea. But that seems to be an issue with this car. It's totally fine now, it being overcast outside, but once it's sunny, it's really hard to see anything. And also, the layout is sometimes a bit weird and confusing with the steering wheel mounted buttons here. You also do have limited, let's see, you have limited functionality at this point in time. Like if we go into here, you only have total average consumption. You cannot reset this. You can't reset a trip either. So those are things that will be fixed. It only shows you the past 50 kilometers, which is a bit annoying, but these are things that will be fixed, they have said. But other than that, it's easy to read. I mean, the layout is totally fine. It is weird that it has actually kilowatts here on the left, but that's also nice to see. If you have a cold battery, you're not getting max power. You also have state of charge down there, your usual information. It's fine enough, though you don't have a map view here because you don't actually have a built-in map in this car yet because of licensing. I've been able to download Google Maps. And guys, this screen here, pretty cool. It looks nice. It works quite nice. It does look like a tablet glued to the dashboard. It's 12.8 inches across. It does look like a tablet glued to the dashboard because it's actually an Android tablet glued to the dashboard. It's running Android, not Android infotainment system like in a Polestar. This is an Android tablet. So that's kind of interesting. It does have some weird ergonomics, like drop-down menu here, which looks like it would on a tablet. That's a bit weird. You also, this Google Maps interface is Google Maps interface on a PC or on a tablet, which is quite interesting. And also, the temperature here has to be set like 3 or 4 degrees warmer than you're actually used to. That's also a software thing that they are fixing, I have been told. But I don't know, the buttons there are logically laid out. Even the HVAC controls are pretty easy, though some of the things are buried in a menu, like going to your heated seats and heated steering wheel, which is a bit annoying. But something you can see here, this thing is super snappy. No lag at all. It's probably, I don't know, I'm going out on a limb. I think this is the fastest responding, least laggy infotainment system I have ever tested in any car to date. Doesn't matter, cold start in the morning, doesn't matter how many things it's running, it just works seamlessly. So kudos to BYD for that. But the layout is a bit weird. And also what is weird, or maybe cool depending on how you look at it, you have this button here which can rotate the screen. So do you want portrait or do you want landscape mode? Well, you can choose here. Though here in portrait, the screen is a bit tall. It does obstruct some of the view out of the windshield. So if it rotated and, you know, moved down a bit, that would be much better. You do have a button here on the steering wheel to also rotate it to its landscape mode. I do prefer landscape. I don't mind that it sits, you know, protruding out of the dashboard because it means it's closer. So ergonomically wise, it's easy to use. So, I mean, the issues here are we don't have enough screen brightness. It's totally fine now that the weather outside is overcast, but when it's sunny outside, it's pretty hard to see what is on the screen. In conclusion, guys, the issues, the niggles, the problems I seem to have with the BYD Tang are related to software. So things that hopefully will be fixed before these cars are delivered to customers, which is what I've been told. So things with the infotainment system, with the driver's display, you know, lacking things like average consumption that you can reset for a trip. Things like built-in map navigation, things like this should be fixed before these cars are delivered to customers within a few weeks here in Norway. And then we have the last, you know, big issue is the charging speed, which also can be fixed. From tests I have seen earlier on in the year, things have improved, charging speed has improved. So I'm, you know, crossing my fingers that, like with other manufacturers, we have seen in the past year or two, they keep updating their cars when it comes to charging speed and when it comes to the infotainment system. So this is like historic data at this point where we see car manufacturers are doing this. So that's why I'm hoping that those things will be sorted out with this car in the future, because the rest of this car, the way it drives, the size of the car, the hardware, you know, the things that are hard to actually change are extremely good. So, you know, before they fix all of these other things, it's hard to, you know, put this car at the very top of my list. But if they sort out, you know, the software stuff here, if they give this car better charging speed and maybe smaller wheels, aerodynamic 20-inch wheels, this is probably going to sit at the very top of my list. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the exterior design, but as a package, this is an impressive car and an EV that a lot of people have been waiting for, especially at this price point. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always guys, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.